Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of O for Food's Sake. So this week we're doing something a little bit different. In October, I attended the IFST Autumn Conference, and throughout the day I recorded various little snippets and interviews, and we have created a podcast for you to give you a sense of what it was like at the conference, some key outputs that we thought were really, really interesting because there were some incredible speakers, and also spoke to some of the sponsors, and also I had little quick chats with people that were attending. So I really hope you enjoy this podcast episode because it is something quite different, and it was brilliant to do because it's the first time that we've sort of been out and about recording on the hoof, which I really enjoyed. So I'm really keen to hear what you think about it. I hope you find the content interesting and it gives you a flavour for what the conference was all about, because it really was worthwhile. It was the first one that I've ever been to, and I was so impressed with the quality of the speakers, which hopefully you'll get an insight into. And there were some really innovative solutions talked about for the industry, which I think are really, really exciting from a sustainability perspective and also food safety. So really hope you enjoy it. Please do let us know, and I will leave you here to listen to the rest of it. Welcome to the O for Food's Sake podcast, where we unwrap the joys and struggles of working in the food industry so you can thrive in what you do best while sustaining a rewarding and fulfilling career or business. We are your hosts, Lucy Wager, food industry consultant,
and Amy Wilkinson, food industry coach. We've worked in the food industry for the last 20 years, and we're here to share with you the benefit of our hindsight. Our podcast is for you to find new ways to cope with the daily struggles, but mostly to inspire you to work on what's not working to ultimately improve your career or business long term.
Hi, Bobby.
Hello.
Thank you so much for inviting me to do this today. It's been just such an amazing day. The quality of the speakers has been incredible. And it's obviously the first time that we've met. I mean, we've exchanged a couple of emails, but tell me what you do. What's your role at IFST? And tell us all about the conference.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for coming. It's really, really exciting to have you here. And I feel like a podcast is the perfect format to, first of all, generate a bit of FOMO for the people who couldn't make it here today.
Absolutely.
So that when they listen to this, they get really excited and come to IFST events in future.
Yeah.
So my name is Bobby Edge Partington. I'm the Senior Communications Manager at IFST. And what that really means is that my job is to make us look good, which is pretty fun. So IFST, the Institute of Food Science and Technology, is the leading professional body for food scientists and food technologists from across the entire food system. And you're speaking to us at a pretty important time because this year, 2024, is 60 years since we were founded.
Oh, wow.
So it's quite a moment for us in our lifetime, because if you think back to 1964 and you think about all the ways the food system has changed since then, it's quite staggering.
I mean, it's pretty impressive that it was actually put together in 1964 because the food industry was only really just getting started then, I guess. Well, as we know it now, industrialization wise. Yeah.
Absolutely. I think the backstory is really interesting, right? Because so sort of through the 1950s, as the economy started to recover after the Second World War, Britain started growing food again. We stopped rationing. There was this huge economic boom, and that obviously created the food manufacturing landscape that started to really grow and eventually evolved into what we know today. So there was the National College of Food Technology started, and there were a group of students there who wanted to get together and really feel represented. So that's kind of how IFST started. Is on the 19th of March, 1964, a bunch of them got together and had the first formal meeting of what eventually became IFST. And it's interesting because there have been conversations about doing this since the 1930s, and there were actually conversations happening, sort of mid 30s to build something similar to IFST. But the Second World War then happened, and it ended up starting. So the Americans got there first and created the Institute of Food Technologists, and then IFST came about in the 1960s.
Incredible. So when did the conferences start?
So we've been running these conferences for decades, and obviously they've grown and grown, and we try and move them to a different location every time. So the incarnation that you're seeing now is actually a bit different to our usual format. So our usual format is we do these conferences in spring, but we changed things up a bit this year because it's our Jubilee year and it's sort of a special celebration. So they've happened in recent years in Cardiff, in Birmingham, happened online during the pandemic, of course, and now we brought it to the north of England to lead.
It's a fantastic venue, actually, because for people that haven't come to that today, there's a really nice entrance, like networking area. It's got loads of lovely cakes, teas and coffees are flowing. And there's a real engagement. Everybody's really friendly, wants to talk, lots of like-minded people. And I think what surprised me is the quality of the speakers and how forward-thinking this conference is. So in my day-to-day work of working with businesses and doing training programs and masterclasses, we talk about sustainability, the food security. We know that we need to reduce waste and all this kind of thing, but it almost, you don't know what you need to do. And I think the two speakers that have been on today talking about AI in food production, and then one of the case studies, BlakBear, are just so exciting because it shows, it's a glimpse into the future, isn't it, of what we can do. And actually, I think for everybody here, I imagine they're going to go away and be like, this is really exciting. How can we do this in our business? And it's like just an injection of motivation, which I think we all really need, don't we?
Definitely. I think what really stands out to me is that those of us who are working in the food system, we totally take for granted how important this work is. And for me as a communications professional, trying to bridge that gap with people is really interesting, because to me, food is the most important thing in the world, right? It's one of the only constants in everyone's life.
Yeah.
And people totally take it for granted. We're lucky that we live in a rich country in the UK, and we can go to the supermarket and pretty much any time we can get what we want. And we don't think about all of the processes, all of the people, all of the systems that are involved in making that a reality. And I think days like today really inject some energy and revitalize that, but then also make us think about the future. And that's part of the energy that we wanted to really capture today, because for us, we want to think about the past and the successes of the last 60 years, but then also be realistic and think about the challenges facing the food system in the next 60 years, because there are so many challenges, and we can't lie to ourselves. We're in this situation where we have a polycrisis that's facing us in the food system.
We're the first, what's the quote of the climate change? We're the first generation that's feeling the impact of climate change, and the last generation that can do anything about it.
Absolutely.
That is powerful, isn't it? So we have responsibilities as consumers, but we also have responsibility within the work that we do. So how on earth are you going to better this for next year? How do you find some of these speakers? Because that must be a task in itself, and kind of curating what the lineup's going to look like.
Yeah, it's a great question, and the work begins immediately. So from next week, we'll start to our sort of conference wrap up and think about how we can make it bigger and better next year, because that's something we realistically always want to do at IFST. But the way that we found his speakers is honestly mostly through the strength of our membership. Our membership is over 3,500 professionals, food scientists, food technologists, people working in the food system from the full breadth of that system. So being able to tap into them and our experienced professionals within our network to speak at events like this is a real privilege. And I think it really speaks to the strength of the membership and the community that's really at the heart of IFST.
Absolutely. So probably a lot of our listeners might not be IFST members.
Absolutely.
So can you come to the conference if you're not a member?
You certainly can. It might cost you a bit more.
Yeah. And from your perspective, what are the key benefits of being a member of IFST?
So just harking back to what I was saying a minute ago, the community is really key point. I think having access to this professional network is fantastic. We have a member-only platform called IFST Community, which you can access. It looks a little bit like Facebook in terms of its interface. You can direct message people. You can join different groups and communities of practice. So for example, we have 6 different special interest groups where you can join them and you can really sort of get involved in a specific subject. So those cover topics like food safety, food processing, and food legislation even. So really, no matter what your background is, you can get involved.
Yeah, and there's the innovation one as well.
Of course, the innovation.
Susan is going to be coming on the podcast.
Fantastic.
At the end as well. So yeah. Because I always like to make that point, because I'm a product developer by my background. Yeah. And I think a lot of product developers can think, oh, well, that's not really for me because I'm not a scientist. But actually, it absolutely is. And it's such a, we talk about keep filling up your tank and keeping fresh and energized. Yeah. And this is, it is more scientific and it is more technical.
Absolutely.
But it's still really relevant. Yeah. And I feel like when you're thinking about sustainability and the future, product developers need to understand, what's happening in the science space as well. So,
of course.
Yeah.
Well, we run so many other events as well throughout the year. So we run online webinars, we run site visits to technical sites. So if you want to go and visit and really get hands-on, you can do that as an IFST member for free as well, included in the price of your membership. Our webinars cover a range of topics. So again, free for all IFST members. We've got a really good one coming up about bread processing and how that's changed over the last 60 years. So we've been covering sort of different food products and how their processing has changed over the lifetime of IFST, and using the expertise of our memberships to tap into that. We also run webinars on creativity and things like that. And I think just having access to that community of people is fantastic. So if you're a food professional and you're traveling to visit somewhere in Wales, for example, you live in north of England, you'd go on IFST community, you'll write a message into the Wales channel. You can say, oh, I'm coming to Cardiff. I don't really know anyone, would love to meet people at the food community.
Amazing.
You can really get to know people. So there's the networking aspect. We also have 2 academic journals, one called the International Journal of Food Science and Technology, which has been long running and is about to hit a big milestone next year as we flip to open access and we move to a new publisher. So as of 2025, it will be published by Oxford University Press. And in terms of publishing, this is sort of one of the highest impact journals in the world for food science and technology. And we are also launching a new sibling journal called Translational Food Sciences, or TFS, which is a bit more near market. So if you're somebody who thinks, oh, academia isn't really for me, and I really struggle with those sort of overly technical articles, TFS is really the one for you, because the research in that journal will be really, really close to the market and really sort of applicable.
And when's that coming out?
First edition, January 2025.
Amazing.
And the most amazing thing about these journals, they're open access. So anybody can read them. And if you decide that you want to publish in these journals, another benefit of being an IFST member is that you get a 20% discount on the publication fee.
Amazing.
So in terms of numbers, to get down to business, IFST membership and associate membership, which is sort of the entry level, is £100 a year. So if you break that down monthly, it's about £8 a month. 2 coffees, pretty reasonable to me.
Yeah, very reasonable, and probably less than 2 coffees depending on where you're.
Yeah, well, for me, I live in London, so maybe 1.5 coffees.
All right, brilliant. Well, thank you so much. So we've just had the first half of the morning and we've had some really, really interesting talks. So Karen Goodburn has just done a talk about listeria, and I haven't heard Karen talk before, but oh my goodness, she delivers quite a dry topic in a really comical fashion at top speed. So I feel like I've been really educated on listeria and some really interesting things which we'll cut out and snippet for you. Also, incredibly insightful keynote talk by Chris Elliot. His students call him Dr. Doom because it was pretty depressing, but also the things that we all really need to hear. Hi, so how have you found the morning sessions?
Yeah, very good, very, very good, especially the first one, the overriding, overwhelming situation we're in.
Yeah.
Very, very good. And I did enjoy the humour of Karen.
I know, I
Well
thought
put.
that. I've never seen
Engaging.
her speak before, and I thought, what a potentially dry topic that delivered, well, A, at
Excellently.
breakneck speed, but also in a really comical, easy to digest way, wasn't it? I really enjoyed it.
And I think what you go away with in the day is because of the power of the person delivering the message.
Oh, definitely.
So that Karen, I'm thinking about my own fridge.
I know. Well, I was thinking about my granddad's fridge and thinking I need to check his fridge. He's 99, and he would say what her father-in-law said, which made me really laugh. But it's made me want to go and talk to other people about the message that she was delivering. So.
And also the ready-to-eat option. I've often thought about that in the freezer, and I thought, like, if you want to make a salad or something using sweet corn or peas, you don't want them hot.
No, and I think working in the food industry and having some technical knowledge, you would know to blanch it, but you know that other people just won't think like that. So
Does it apply to fruits? That's my next question.
Well, and it probably does. So
So it's really very, very interesting.
Lots to look forward to. Well, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day. So I'm just with Max Grell. So Max, you did a fantastic, it was like an elevator pitch of your amazing brand, which I'm so excited about because it's going to revolutionise waste, I think, in the food system.
That's the plan. Yeah, thanks, Lucy, for the feedback.
So tell me a little bit about what you do at BlakBear.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. Well, let me set the scene. Let me set the scene first. So everyone knows there's so much food waste. It's a third of food is wasted, is what they say. 10% of greenhouse gas emissions. But what happens in that moment before food is wasted? Well, if you're at home, you'd check the use-by date on the food, or you might trust your nose on that food and make that decision. But if you're a business, supermarket, restaurant, factory, you don't have that choice. You have to look at a fixed date and you have to discard the food if it's past that date. The problem is that date on the food, it doesn't actually know how fresh the food is, right? It can't. It's just a printed date. And that means most of that food that's discarded because of a worst case scenario date, it's still good to eat or still good to cook. And so the question we're asking is, what if food could tell you how fresh it is? And that's what we do. We build little sensors that go in packs to tell you how fresh food is, and we're using it to try and cut waste in the supply chain.
That is amazing. And on your presentation, you showed a video where somebody gets their phone and puts it onto the sensor on a tiny little sticker, basically, it's on the packaging, and it can tell you like the amount of gas or, you know, how fresh it is, basically, using the amazing technology that you've created.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, so we invented a type of gas sensor that works really well in food packages. And the way you get the data is you place one of these electric labels on a package, and then it can send out data every second on what gas is in there. And to read it, you can just tap it with your phone. It communicates by NFC, a bit like a contactless payment. It reads that sensor and then sends the data to the cloud, where the cloud AI interprets it and says, how many bacteria are there? How does it smell? How many bacteria will there be in the future? And therefore, how many days left of freshness?
It's so incredible. And the whole day today has been really eye-opening, because we've had the talk on AI in the food industry, and then you talked about what you're doing, and that like coming together of technologies from very different technologies is so exciting and really gives us a glimpse. It's a real hopeful glimpse, isn't it? Because the first talk we had was obviously about food security and all the, you know, Dr. Doom, as he calls him, or his students call him. But actually, things like this can, you know, help us get to where we need to get to, which I want everybody in the food industry to start using BlakBear.
100%. Me too. You should join us.
Yeah, definitely.
Me too. But look, we have to try and half waste by 2030. That was a UK government target. So we're going to have to do something pretty radical to get there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like in 5 years, there's no reason we should have fixed dates on food causing unnecessary waste. I think we'll look back on it and be like, that was kind of silly.
It feels archaic already, doesn't it? Like, as soon as you know there's better technology, it's like, why are we just like believing a date that's on the
We have digital now. It doesn't need to be printed. We have AI. We can make predictions. Yeah, we've got to use it for food.
Amazing. Well, so delighted to have met you. Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you, Lucy.
So tell me about Tracegains, because I keep seeing it everywhere, but I don't really know what it is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, we acquired NutriCalc just over 12 months ago now, and it fitted really nicely in with our product portfolio. So we've got kind of two bookends here. We've got everything about compliance and everything about MPD. So we have developed a PLM style system. So at the core of what we do is we collect data for food and beverage businesses.
Right.
The heart of what we do is about supplier management. So manage all of your suppliers, collect all documents, everything that you need to undertake risk assessments. And then we have multiple other modules as well. So run your non-conformances, your audits. We auto process certificates of analysis and the QC at goods intake. And we help factories go paperless as well. On the other end, we have our MPD tools. So be able to digitize all raw material specs. We've got a recipe formulation tool. This is where the NutriCalc comes in, because we have bolted in. So NutriCalc's still standalone, or all of the great functionality is now native on Tracegains as well. So all of the reports, creating front of pack, back of pack, quids, all that sort of stuff, all through the platform. But where the secret sauce is our network. So in the middle of all this, we've for the last 10 years, we've been creating the Tracegains network. One of the massive challenges in the industry is data collection.
Yeah.
So everyone is wanting the same information from all their suppliers, but asking for it in 1,000 different ways. Yeah. And this is where technology has actually had a negative impact, because there's lots of what we call single-use portals out there. To go, hey, use our platform. Yeah, we can digitize your 500 question SAQ. We can send it out to your 500 suppliers. They can fulfill it out for you, collect all the documentation. Lovely. The problem is that all of the ingredient suppliers and packaging suppliers are overwhelmed by data requests. What we've done, and we've been coming at it from a very different way, is we've created a network, very much like LinkedIn or a social network, and we've standardized a lot of this data. So when suppliers join at the request of one of our customers, be it Coca-Cola or Kerry or AB InBev or Hovis, they upload this information once, and then they can share it multiple times. So some of our suppliers in our network have over 500 Tracegains customers. So when they upload an EGFSI, instead of sending it out 500 times, you would just upload it once into your profile, and then that document then flows in 500 times.
Which kind of makes sense, and that feels like the world that we should live in.
We should have standardization. I don't know how much you know about the PIF, in Australia. So the Australian Grocery Council cottoned on to the fact of, hey, we need a standard way of sharing product specifications. So they've standardized a product spec in Australia. So when you share a document, you've got to share it through one of 3 vendors who we're connecting into. But you've just got a standardized way. So, it's just easy.
It does make
I've got the information here. It's in a format that it's needed.
Yeah.
I just hit accept. All that flows into where it needs to go, rather than going on to a PLM portal or filling out, God love them, an Excel sheet with the spec. Gone are those days. So a network, the whole network effect is the future of data sharing. It is absolutely. Yeah. And in this network now, we've got 85,000 supplier locations. We've got over 500,000 items and ingredients, and we have now 9 million documents. So if you work for a food business, you're looking for a new supplier, I need a new packaging supplier, I need a new supplier of butter or wheat or sulfur dioxide, you would go onto the network, go, I need this item, I need it within 300 miles of my facility. It needs to be GFSI, it needs to be non-GMO, and it needs to come from a peanut-free facility. Rather than Googling all that, you would just go onto the network, hit search, and it will bring up, here's all the suppliers with the raw materials that fit your criteria.
And so
and you can view all the documents.
And how do you get access to the network? You have to be a Tracegains member?
No, you can join. 2.5 years ago, we opened up for free. So anybody can search the network, and then you can view documents, limited, for the free version. If you're an enterprise customer, you have unlimited access to it. But here's the thing, the big challenge is about supplier engagement. And so suppliers now, it's a portal for sharing data, which is great, but it's actually a shop window for their business as well. Because we have procurement and R&D professionals searching this network. We have over 30,000 searches a week. So we're connecting buyers and suppliers together. So it's a free shop window. So there's value add for the supplier to join the network. They join for free. They can upload their whole catalogue if they want. And also, it's funky as well. You get every supplier, every listing gets a search engine ranking as well. So if someone is searching on Google or Bing, then you may well find a Tracegains link there to go onto the network. So for me personally, and I've worked for 3 other software vendors in the UK and Ireland that does this I definitely feel is going to be the way of sharing and transferring data within the industry.
That sounds right. I'm definitely, because I didn't realise that you could, I've seen Tracegains, but I've been using NutriCal.
All about the data.
And I've been like, that looks really interesting, but I haven't actually looked any further. So now I will, I'm going to join.
Then we're building data partnerships. So once you have, this is your suppliers, this is all of the regulatory compliance. We've got ESG, sustainability data partners.
That's really...
So we plug in to people like Sustained and Ditch Carbon, and we're building a connection to SEDEX as well for ethical compliance. But you can then plug this in and look at, these are all my raw materials, this is all the carbon footprint of my raw materials.
So that's got to come.
This is the water impact and all the other sustainability factors. And then all of that data, so you can calculate your scope 3, all that data goes into product formulation. So not only are you formulating based on taste, nutrition, allergen claims, but you now, if I use this raw material,
we've got to be doing
versus this raw material, how does that impact on my product? And then you can grab, if you search in the network and see, that supplier looks good, I'm not working with them, but that raw material looks great, you can grab that, drop that into your recipe,
and see what impact
what impact before you've even reached out to them. And then, by the way, you've seen their product specification.
That cuts out so much time.
100%. So the more people, that's why we partner with the IFST, we're platinum sponsors. It's just people need to be aware.
It's the awareness, because and it's funny because we've had a conversation recently on the podcast about how behind the food industry is in technology. And it's so frustrating because, and I've done carbon footprint work, and I've been like, there needs to be an easier way of doing this, because it has to come. We have to be more educated in how we're developing products more sustainably.
LCAs are timely, they're expensive, and they're a snapshot in time. Once you've done an LCA,
and you want to be able to compare different ingredients with.
100%.
So that is really exciting.
And then hot off the press, we were acquired by a much larger organisation a week ago.
Oh, wow.
And that organisation now is 5 billion in turnover.
Yeah.
But they have a number of divisions. A very exciting division for us is their packaging divisions. They have software to help for designing artwork and printing labels. And you know Pantone, the colour, they own that business.
Oh, wow.
So we're now developing a full source, market source to shelf PLM system. So it's going to be, the future's going to be really, really interesting. It's about connecting data.
Yeah, definitely.
So the more data, and we're going to grab more and more data. So
I'm really glad that you've told us all of that. Thank you.
The future.
It's like a whole episode that we've done here.
Garlic bread, it's the future.
Thank you.
So, hi, I haven't heard of this before. What is FSTA?
FSTA is a database that's published by the International Food Information Service, IFST Publishing, and it is designed to help people to find high quality content that is has been verified and curated by a team of expert scientists. So it's used very broadly around the world by leading universities, by large food manufacturing companies, and it helps people to find high quality information that's really relevant very quickly, safe in the knowledge that they're using quality content and avoiding fake science and predatory publishing.
That sounds really interesting. And what's your connection to IFST and what are you hoping to get out of today?
We have been connected with the IFST for many years now. With our values and missions really are quite aligned in terms of sort of serving the food science community. We are a not-for-profit as well, so we are very much looking to support people and be able to help them find information that they need. So we've been connected to the IFST for many years. We're one of the sponsors. We do this event. We come to this event every year.
Amazing.
And it's really great to meet with people in this particular community every year.
So is there a particular website that we can go to find out more information?
Certainly is. So people can go to the ifst.org website, and that has information about all of our databases on there, including FSTA.
Amazing. So that's ifis.org.
IFIS, yes.
Perfect.
Correct.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much.
Hi, Daria. It's lovely to see you here. And what did you think of this morning, and what are you looking forward to later?
Well, it was such a lovely start of IFST conference, but I must also mention how brilliant dinner was yesterday.
Oh.
Yeah, it was really, really nice. Great
So
networking.
is that part of the conference?
Yes, it was part, and even it was a Leeds University lab tours I've done.
Wow.
So that was a great organization. I must say, it's brilliant event. Really going to go here again. Come here again or a different place. Well, what did I enjoy today was the opening up speech by Chris Elliot, and I think well known. And it's again about everything what's global level, and you see all the challenges.
Yeah.
And you realize you kind of play a really small role, but really important role. But what I like to see from his talk is that that all global challenges, and you face them every day, like a climate change, the crisis, the war, economical situation, and then at the end, it's so important how you play this role. If you see it and you push it,
yes,
and
it's raising that awareness.
Really the collaborative way, and then it's like definitely one person can make a big change by that little steps on the way.
And I think it's passing the message on as well, isn't it? Like coming to things like this, hearing Chris talk, and it's scary, the stuff that he talks about, isn't it? But knowing that we can make a difference.
Yeah, definitely. So I really enjoyed that, and also Peter Littleton talked about the environmental program, how important is the hygiene, is really basic. And based on my experience going to middle and small sized businesses, I really think that's a prerequisite. It's a really cool. We need to start your work going to the systems, going to the improving. And the final talk was by Karin about listeria, and that was just mind-blowing how much information could be squeezed into that short period of time.
It really was. She was fantastic.
But I will be using this to do that.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, thanks ever so much. We're being ushered back upstairs now. Speak to you later. So how long have you been an IFST member, and do you come to the conference every year?
I've been an IFST member since I was a student, which is a very long time, but I've only recently kind of become more engaged in IFST activities since I became a self-employed consultant, because working full-time in the food industry, there wasn't really time to getting involved in other things that were going on.
And you're a product development consultant like me, aren't you, Susan? And I think there's a bit of a misconception that IFST isn't for product developers, which I want to dispel, because it's actually such a fantastic resource for us, isn't it?
And I think kind of historically going back, since graduating, I've always worked in product development, and I possibly felt then that there wasn't really much for for product developers within the IFST. And that actually was one of the driving forces behind us creating the innovation special interest group, because that's all about, innovation, creativity, elements of the working in the food industry. So now I feel there really is a place for product developers.
But also, like a lot of the talks that we've had today about food security, and it all impacts product development, doesn't it? And I just think we have a responsibility to understand what's
the whole
happening.
food chain and what's going on across the industry.
Exactly. And I also think the talks, particularly about the environmental monitoring, as a product developer, you see the pressures that the technical teams are under.
Definitely.
And actually, that in itself is really useful for, just the happiness of within the business, the business that you work with.
Totally. And I think, as product development, you kind of have to have an appreciation of what's going on throughout the whole of the business, because you need to negotiate and collaborate with all of these people. Absolutely. So you need to kind of know what they're doing. So you don't need to be an expert, but you need to have an appreciation of what they're doing to make your job doable, really.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Well, enjoy the rest of the sessions.
Yes.
So, Ruth, you're a joint chair.
Yes.
Of the Midlands branch of IFST, aren't you?
Yes, second time round.
And are you a regular at the conferences?
I'd say irregular. I'd say probably every other year.
Right, okay.
So the first conference I ever went to, I organised.
Oh,
and that was an accident in
And then you've never done it since?
No. I've never organised it since. Yeah. Once bitten, twice shy. No, because I got into the IFST only when I was accepted. So my background is a home economist.
Right.
And so when the Institute of Home Economics closed, then we were allowed to join. And up until then, it was interesting, because the majority of people in the Home Economics Institute were product demonstrators or they were teachers. And there was I working in factories and working in retail. So I spent 8 years at Tesco.
Right.
And it was just that balance between food science, and our head of department always used to send me to the IFST meetings for her.
Oh, useful.
So that's how I knew about it.
Yeah.
So I actually jumped straight in and wanted to be involved in the committee and things like that, because I knew that's where the networks were.
Yeah.
So actually being proactively involved.
And have you found that, the number of people that are here today, I was actually surprised at how busy it is.
This is standard.
Yeah.
This is standard,
It's brilliant. And the quality of the talks is exceptional, isn't it? I really feel like privileged to be here and listening to the education that you get from this is incredible.
But that's what you get from the engagement. Just being a member and not engaging does not give you any benefits, other than unless it's after your name, which actually doesn't help.
Yeah.
So, but it's what I've been really pleased to hear about how they're saying about you working cross-disciplinary.
Yeah.
But that's the use of being in the institute.
Yeah, and actually making use of it.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick breather here to hear from our fantastic sponsors. They help keep the podcast going, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Are you a food manufacturing business? Is your customer service team pushed to the limit over the festive period? This shouldn't be the case.
Mezze is a branded online ordering and customer service platform that lets your customers place, amend, and track their orders at any time, on any device. An Amazon-like experience. Tiffin Sandwiches has already saved over £100,000 in efficiencies this year.
Mezze is easy to set up and it connects to your other systems. Visit the website to book a no-strings demo. Go to mezze.io, that's MEZZE.io. Mezze, Amazon-like ordering for your customers.
Before we dive into the talks from the conference, I just wanted to introduce the speakers to you. Chris Elliot is Professor of Food Safety at Queen's University. This was such an interesting talk. I've written so many notes, and I think you will find what he has to say incredibly interesting. I wish we could share all of the talk and make a full episode on it because it's so interesting.
I'm really honoured to be here to give the lecture at the Jubilee event for IFST. And do you know where this is the eve of World Food Day, so what wonderful timing to have the conference. I was also really pleased when Sterling said, Chris, come and talk whatever you want about. So I chose this title. Now, my students at Queen's University, who I adore very much, give me the nickname of Dr. Doom. And the reason for that is often I talk about serious things, massive challenges. Just to tell you today, you're getting Dr. Doom on steroids. Now, where are we in the world? Past the population of 8 billion people on the planet. Of that 8 billion people, there's about 1 billion people suffer from overnourishment. And the epidemic that we have in terms of type 2 diabetes and many other associated ailments. And we are approaching fast 1 billion people on the planet each day going to bed hungry. Have I cheered you all up? It's a really challenging global environment in terms of our food system. And you know what I'm going to talk about are some of the main challenges that we have. And I think we've gone through the pandemic. There's many issues in terms of global conflicts and stuff. And I try to really summarize, and I have a whole lecture about this. Consider yourselves lucky you're not going to get this one. But it's about, I call it the 4 drivers of change to our global food supply system. And the first is about our changing climate. And we've moved away from talking about global warming to climate change to climate crisis. And the more I think about it, see what's happening and really understand the impact of our climate. Actually, it's not so much about temperature changes. It's about changing patterns of weather. So I set myself a challenge when I was preparing this lecture. How many newspaper stories could I find about the impact of water on our food supply system? Within 5 minutes, I found these. Some parts of the world, too much water, floods. Some parts of the world, too little water and droughts. And it's impacting the entire world. And all of these are having major impacts on food systems. Brazil, incredibly short of water. Southeast Asia, underwater. Europe, Southern Europe, in drought and has been in drought for several years' time. And you think about, well, this is what's going on in the big bad world. The UK does not have a food security policy, and it desperately needs one. Did you know there is currently 29 wars happening across the world? 29 different wars. That is a higher number since the end of the Second World War. This is where we are in terms of global conflict, and there's many drivers of these conflict. Most of it is based on economics. A lot of it is based on shortages of water and food. Dinner with Sterling last night, and I told him that this year I visited a city in China called Xi'an, the home of the Terracotta Army. It was the former capital of China, and I got history of China. And multiple revolutions happening, the falls of dynasty happened generally because of shortages of food. Slowalization is the opposite of globalization. And I've been looking at this recently, and you know, The Economist magazine is picking up on it, and it is the reversal of the whole globalization where goods are moving from one part of the world to another. And it's really important in terms of our food system as well. Now, if I give you an example, just about 6 months ago, India, the Indian government said they're going to stop exporting rice. That's the world's biggest exporter of rice. And the Indian government said, we're going to stop. Why did they say that? Because there was a growing number of hungry people in India. And there was elections coming. So for political reasons, they basically said, we're going to stop exporting rice. But I can see that happening in many, many different parts of the world. Where I do a lot of my work in Southeast Asia, particularly Thailand, I can see the Thai government telling farmers, stop planting so many crops. We will subsidize you, but because of your environmental footprint, we want you to produce less food. And recently, I read this article in the China Daily, and it was, a food power is born. And the Chinese are realizing now is that the control of food and the food supply system is going to be hugely important in terms of world domination. And it's China, it's Russia, it's Brazil coming together. And it's something that the Western world, I don't think, is really taking enough attention to. Now, we all hear a lot about food security. More recently, the drive has been for sustainability. And again, show of hands, how many people in the businesses that you work in is sustainability one of the big ticket items? It's really, really important. I think for the last 4 or 5 years, a lot of my work has been in what's called food systems resilience. Resilience dealing with all of the shocks that are happening about climate, about wars. So resilience is becoming more important. And often I say is, you can't think about food security without thinking about sustainability, and you can't think about sustainability without resilience. And often in the thinking around food systems, what is forgotten about is the issues, the impact that it has on food safety and fraud. And these are the areas that I tend to spend most of my time on. Last year I was asked to write an article and talk about the crystal ball, what are the 5 big challenges to future food safety. And this would be, you know, a great conversation for IFST members because you'd probably come up with 25 different topics. But I came up with these because number 1, by far, is our changing climate. And I'd see more and more food safety challenges. The second is around foodborne viruses. And I will tell you, in COVID, we were lucky, really lucky, that COVID was not transmitted by food. In the early days, there was a lot of rumours that it was food transmitted. It turned out that it wasn't. If it had been, the pandemic would have been 10 times worse. But because of the challenges that we are having, the likelihood of foodborne viruses impacting the world is really large. We have massive issues about antimicrobial resistance. And because of a lot of the factors involved in climate change and more disease of animals, more antibiotics are being used. And the use of antibiotics in the world is increasing dramatically, whereas in the UK, the use of antibiotics in livestock is reducing. The fourth factor was the economic crisis that the world is in, and that is really driving a lot of very, very unsafe practices. And then the fifth one that I came up with was the drive towards sustainability. And a lot of people don't like me talking about this, is actually the drive towards a more sustainable food system is going to create more food safety challenges. Last night we heard a lot about the new centre that's being set up for alternative proteins, which is great. I actually advise the government of Singapore about alternative proteins, and what I tell them is, you don't know the challenges in food safety that you're facing in the future. So I hope the centre in the UK that's being set up really starts to understand these. The introduction of new risks, particularly around allergens. In terms of food fraud, all I see is this upward trend. And it is a wonderful period of time if you want to be a cheat, because there's so many challenges, incredible challenges to the food system. And where there are these challenges, particularly in supply and demand, it allows criminals to come in and penetrate them. The amount of money currently made in food fraud, which was estimated by PwC, is more than the amount of money made in the world's heroin trade. That's a lot of money. I have whole lectures about these solutions, but I'm just going to list just a few of them that I think are amazing, inspiring. a lot of the work that's been done in precision agriculture, and that's about the use of data, drones, GPS systems, really, really fantastic work that's going on in terms of precision agriculture. There is a lot more thought consideration going on to how you actually make land sustainable, developing better ecosystems. Because of the challenges of water, I can see amazing innovations in terms of how to use water better. Really, really smart ways. Then there is a massive amount of work going on what we call climate resilient crops, better at managing drought, better at managing too much water, better at growing still where there's higher degrees of salinity. Guess what? I have another lecture on that because it's about, a lot of this is about GM, it's about GE. Is this a good thing, a bad thing in terms of sustainability? Is it a good or bad thing in terms of food safety? So again, there are lots and lots of scientific innovations, but there will always be trade-offs, In terms of pest management, because of our changing climate, there are a multitude of different issues in terms of pests, particularly fungi, actually. One of Sterling's, worst jokes, he always says, Chris does a lot of work with mycotoxins, he's a real fun guy. But in terms of the world of the challenges of pests, there is a massive increase in the use of pesticides, and with that comes food safety challenges. So I think some of the innovations in around biological control are absolutely fantastic. Now, one of the things I'm really heavily involved in now, which I never thought I would be, and that's working for the US government, the UK government, International Atomic Energy Agency, is thinking about how to harness nuclear technologies in terms of driving a sustainable food system, particularly around safety and shelf life. And again, guess what? I have a whole lecture on this. It is amazing some of the work that's going on at the moment in terms of the use of nuclear technologies. Now, I could not come and talk to the IFST members without saying is the role of food scientists and technologists is immense. And I have an article written about this. You have an amazing role to play in terms of driving food security. Former president of Finland, he said, if there's a political will, we can solve anything. And in terms of our global food system, we need a political will. We cannot say that the problems in terms of our food supply, the problems with climate are because of what they're doing in China or other parts of the world. Individual countries have to take responsibility, and I include the UK government in that. But also, without a proper business plan, nothing will change because the whole world's food supply system is driven by economics. And again, the one thing that I often see missing is an understanding who actually produces our food. Do you know that nearly 70% of the world's food is produced by smallholders? 70%. And there are 500 million smallholders in the world. And if you add on their families, approximately another 1.5 billion people, that's a quarter of the world's population is involved in our food production. And they're the last people we think about because most of those smallholders either live on the poverty line or below it. How can you transform a system where the major stakeholders aren't thought about or involved? So again, a lot of what we are trying to do is bring those smallholders on board. And I see many, many examples. If I go back to the project in Thailand and we're saying, well, this is how you change and make your aquaculture more resilient. You know what the farmers will say is, I can't do that. I can't afford that. Because if I change anything, I am worried that my family won't be able to eat next week. So that's the complexities. So I think it's about thinking of our global food supply system as people-based. That's right back to what you said at the start. It's about people and bringing them together. And I think doing that and having the political world, we will be able to transform our world food supply system. So finally, I'm finishing on a positive note. Thanks for your attention.
Nik Watson is Professor of AI in Food at University of Leeds. I didn't know this existed, so it was such an interesting talk to listen to. And I also had the opportunity to catch Nik after his talk as well, so you can hear me speaking to him as well.
So I found your talk so incredibly interesting because I just love the topic of AI, and you actually really got me thinking about how we get hung up on AI as a term. And I didn't know until somebody actually focused on AI to help the food industry. So what's your involvement with IFST, and what do you do?
Yeah, so I've known the IFST for years through different events. I've published in their journals and spoken at different conferences and stuff. And I think it's really important that we have an organisation like this that supports the community. It brings together industry, technology providers, academics like myself, and really gives us a platform to talk about all those important topics, because food is really, really complex. We've got challenges around health, sustainability, safety, availability, equitability of food. And I think having these forums where we bring that together, we can network and talk, is really, really important.
It really is.
Yeah.
I do some work with the future food movement as well. And just knowing where to go to help with those expertise and to know what we can do to develop more sustainable products is really, really useful.
Yeah, no, I think it's really key, and I think that's one of the things I've always enjoyed with the IFST is if you can go to them, if they can't help you, they'll find the person that does.
Exactly.
And I mean, this is we've just launched at Leeds with Sheffield Imperial and James Hutton Institute, the National Alternative Protein Innovation Centre, and that's one of the things we want to do. We realise we don't know everything about alternative protein, so we want to get all the other universities and industries who are stakeholders in alternative proteins in the UK involved, so we can really grow that community and support each other. And our ambition is just to make the UK the international leader in alternative proteins.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much. Really great to meet you today.
Yeah, love to meet you.
I'm sure you'll be followed by lots more people now. Thank you very much. Thanks.
So what are some of the benefits of AI in food production? And I mean, I get asked a lot about what AI is. And for me, it's not what it is, it's what it can do. And what it can do is identify correlations. So it might not be a causal thing that's linking it, but correlations in large and complex data sets. And as a functional output, it can make predictions. And why is that important? Well, it helps us make better decisions faster and cheaper. So it helps us get more lucky, and it helps us discover things quicker. Without a doubt, I think the biggest benefit we'll get out of machine learning and AI is around material discovery. Because these, especially in the biological plant kingdom, where we've got so many different materials, the animal kingdom, I think people are discovering things, but it's just a long, hard slog. And if we look at some of the scientific discoveries in the past, penicillin, stainless steel, most of these were accidents. Even a lot of drugs were discovered trying to make it for one thing and found it had a benefit in another area. So it was just luck that we got there because you were just doing a lot of it. And I think this is what it will help us with a lot. And it's really great to see 2 of the Nobel Prizes this year going to AI methods. The physics one for the Geoffrey Hinton, the other one looking at Boltzmann machines, which led to the neural network architecture that we're used to, and the AlphaFold, the protein one, which again is about discovery and understanding. So I think when you think about, in your businesses, if you want to use AI, I think always start with, don't think about AI, don't think about sensor, don't think about robotics. Think about what is the challenge you're trying to address, or what is the opportunity you want to address. Start with that first, and then try and figure out, and always use the simplest thing you can. Because we've been working in this area for years, and it takes a long time, it's difficult, there's lots to learn. But start with what you're trying to use it for, and then work backwards. What is it you're trying to do? Are you trying to reduce your energy? Are you trying to make your processes more resilient so you can use different feedstocks? Think about the challenge first, and then move on to it. So what are the challenges of AI in food production? So I've got some here, and some of these are the ones that I think are quite unique to food, and others are just a bit more general, but still worth talking about. For me, I think the biggest challenge is just the sheer level of complexity, diversity we have in food in terms of materials. If you think of some of the food you're going to be eating today, just actually think about how many different, if you're eating a sandwich, you've got all the ingredients, each one of those, bread itself, very, very complex. Lots of complexity, lots of variability. Really, really difficult. I used to work in engineering and manufacturing faculty, and you'd have people working in aerospace, automotive, and they're looking at nuts and bolts and pieces of steel that are all exactly the same to sub-micron precision. We just don't have that. When we're looking at moisture content in a potato, we're measuring it to 2 or 3 You know, we have a lot of challenges in that, and processes, systems, we have lots of legacy systems. Collecting and labeling the right data. So people will talk about AI as being biased, AI as being corrupt and all these things. It's not, it's the data. It's the data you feed them to train the AI. And that's the most important thing I want you to think about. If you take one thing away from this talk, is that don't worry about the AI, think about the data you're using to train that. That's absolutely key. And people often say to me like, oh, we've got lots of data. How much data do you need? And you know, we used to have that term that's kind of gone now, big data. People can remember that. And it's like, what does that actually mean, big data? Terabyte, 100 terabytes? But it's not about the volume. It's about the data that fully characterizes the system you're trying to model. And this is why it's actually quite easy to do stuff in a lab, collect some data, train a model. It's a lot harder to do it in a factory, in a supermarket, in a field, because you just have a lot more natural environmental variability in there that you need to bring into your model. So think about, it's about getting the right data. That's really, really key. I think the other big challenge we have in the food sector is investment and skills. Really, really difficult. I mean, we've done some work, I'm not showing it here, we developed a sensor and a machine learning model to monitor fermentation processes in breweries, and when we're working with a little brewery down the road. And we were working on this, it was all giving us good results. And then we start talking to the, you know, when you start getting stuff, the university, what they call business engagement, innovation office, get really excited and want to talk to you about how they can make money out of this. So you start chatting to the breweries in more detail. And they say, this is great, Nick. So how much would you pay for this? They're like, yeah, maybe 50 quid. Like, and that's the reality of it. It's not something, it's a nice to have for them. It's not absolutely critical to what they're doing. So from a innovator, entrepreneur, not that's what I am, but how can you make a business? You know, there's about 1,300, 1,400 breweries in the UK. They're all paying 50 quid. It's not a huge amount of money to launch a business, is it? So these are the challenges, and the skills as well. And it's not just the digital skills, it's the skills in everything. And I think that's one of the things with the kind of area of applied AI, it's making sure you understand your domain. I find it much easier to have really good food scientists, process engineers, and teach them the statistics and the machine learning and the data science than the other way around. You've got to be grounded in understanding the problem you're trying to solve. I'm not saying the data science is trivial, it's not, but I feel it's easier to learn if you understand the problem domain that you're in first, and I think that's key. Other problems are explainability and interpretability. So there we've got our dog again at the bottom. You see lots of pictures of dogs, but some of them aren't dogs there. For those at the back, there's some blueberry muffins that look like dogs. It comes back to what I was saying earlier, like, if you asked a dog what it is, what would it say? Does a dog know it's a dog? Yeah, interesting. Yeah. I know, a few people looking spaced out. But if we're going to use these tools, we need to understand how they're making decisions and how we can interpret them. And this is a problem with neural networks, these huge models, they're often black boxes. So there's lots of work around that. Trust and privacy. So a lot of the companies we work with are terrified about giving their data away. Or what are you going to do with it? Are you going to know about this? And to be honest, I totally understand that. And at Leeds, we've got the Leeds Institute for Data Analytics. We've got safe rooms. We're working with lots of retailers, lots of medical data. We can do that in a secure way. But there's methods around this. We do work in areas called federated learning, where we can take data. Say we had 4 bakeries in here. We could take all their data sets, and we build a local model for each one, maybe to monitor their energy efficiency. But then we build a global model. So it doesn't use the data from each one, it uses derivatives of the models we've developed. So there's no way you can trace back. And this is common for things like purchasing data, medical records, financial data. It's been done. So we need to stop. We should be mindful of our data and data security, but not let that stop us doing the great things, because it is possible. Accountability. And for this, I mean, it's the accountability of people using the AI systems. That's absolutely key. On the right here, I've got a graph, and sorry for those who can't see it, but what you'll see, this is the number of publications in PubMed that use the word delve in it. So does anyone use ChatGPT and notice it likes to use the word delve a lot? Yeah, Ash was delving into his... yeah. But it does use that word delve a lot, which most people don't use. And if you look at this graph, what you'll see is, 2007, delve's creeping up because there's more papers being written, more publication out there. 2023, it just absolutely leaps up. And it goes down a bit in 2024 because the models learn maybe we shouldn't have delve in there so much. Now, this could be people just who English isn't their first language or extremely busy. I use large language models to help with my writing. It's not one of my core strengths. But the people putting these out there have to have accountability. And if you're using an AI, at the end of the day, you've got to make sure you agree with what it's written. It's Really, really key. Other thing as well is, and I've mentioned this a few times, if you're using these machine learning methods, it is correlation and not causation. So you've got to be really careful. And this is, I love this website, it's spurious correlation. So this is 2 graphs. This is the number worldwide non-commercial space launches in red over years and sociology doctorates awarded in the US. And you can, I think we'll all agree there's probably not a link there, but the data would say, and we laugh at this, but this is really, really important for a lot of the equipment we use. We do a lot of work with near-infrared, hyperspectral, spectroscopic equipment. This creates a lot of data. Say we're building a model to predict sugar content in a potato, the chance that something in our signal correlates with something we're trying to measure is extremely high. So we could say, well, we've built an AI model that can predict this, it's going to be great. But will it work in the real world? So you have to go back to understanding your domain. So, okay, which wavelengths was it that correlated? Do they link with what we'd expect to see for sugar? And the other thing is overhyped. AI is absolutely everywhere. And when I took on this position, they appointed 2 of us. And Michelle Morris, if those who work with her, absolutely brilliant, does a lot with retail data, consumer data. And we talked about, did we actually want to have AI in our title? Because what it means, and people are getting fed up of it, or they're not sure it actually adds value. And we had a long discussion about that. There is a lot of hype around here, and I think we've got to cut through all that and find the use cases that add real value to us. And I think we've got to promote those use cases. I think that's really, really important. And this is what I call AI the ugly. These are the things that worry me. AI tools get smarter, they grow more racist, experts find. And again, it's not the AI system, it'll be the data set it's used to train it. It's got a bias in it that's coming through. The growing importance of ethical data labeling. So I showed you those examples of those cats and the dogs. You could imagine an example where you've got a camera in your production line taking images of your products, good products, bad products. Someone's going to have to look at those images and label it, and that takes a lot of time. Where does most of the data labeling happen? Do you think it happens in a nice office in Leeds, or do you think it happens in a lower income country? People working in maybe questionable conditions. So, and we're using these models, so we're part of that as well. We've got to understand that. And probably the thing I worry personally about the most is that I think AI has got a huge potential to benefit people. And if it's done the right way, it doesn't have to be that expensive. It can provide lots of benefits. It can be equitable. It can be democratic. But currently, it really isn't. And I worry it's just going to drive that divide between those who have and those who haven't. I mean, I would not want to be an academic who is doing fundamental computer science, because you can't do it. If you develop new algorithms, you need to benchmark them. You need a data set. Well, they don't have the data sets. The big companies, the bigger tech companies have those data sets, and it's all of your data that they've got that they can use. They also don't have the computing power. It's massive, some of these models. So you can't actually do research in this area unless you work for them. It's really, really hard. And people often ask me, will AI take my job? And this isn't my quote, I'm not sure who it is, but I think it's, AI won't take your job, but someone using AI probably will. And I think that's the thing you've got to think about. I also feel one of the things we need to do is have realistic expectations of technology. And self-driving cars is a great example. Every time someone dies in a self-driving car, it's on the front page of a newspaper. What isn't on the front page of that newspaper is how many human-driven cars had caused accidents that day. When technology is doing something, we expect it to be absolutely perfect, yet we're okay with humans making mistakes because we're humans. And I think we need to stop thinking about that and understand the benefit these provide, even if it's not perfect. That's absolutely key. This is some work that we're doing in our lab, and this is about how can we take food waste, food loss, and how can we turn it into something with value, so microbial proteins. This is upcycling, valorization. Now, this all sounds absolutely wonderful, doesn't it? The trouble with this is this waste is highly variable, different compositions, different types of damage. So what you tend to do is you make it into a liquid media, and then you put it in your fermenter, and you've got to choose the type of yeast you want to use, your fermenter temperature, do you want to stir it, your fermenter type, your pH. Lots of things to do, and you typically go through that experimentally. You'd have a bit of an idea how to start, and then you just keep trial and error going through it, how we do when we're maybe trying to design a new food or reformulate. And that takes a long time to figure out if it works, and that takes a lot of cost, and you have to do that for each different waste stream. So it's very resource intensive, and then you realise, actually, is this worth doing? What we've done in this work is we've started doing some experimental work on strawberries with some of our partners, Jerusalem artichokes, but we built a big general model. So we went through all the literature on food waste and people who've been fermenting it, and we built a model that could help you optimize your process. So typically, if you're doing just for one system, you can use a method called Bayesian optimization, which I don't expect any of you to know, but it just tells you what experiment to try next so you can get to the optimal solution quicker. What we did is build a general machine learning model, and then for each one, so we found 5 research papers. We went through a Bayesian optimization process with each research paper. So if they just did it on their own, they would need 16 experiments, 25, 16, and this is just to predict biomass volume at the end of this. With our generic model, we've gone from 16 experiments to 3, 25 to 5. So we're reducing that time and the cost to get to it. And the next stage of this is we're going to start optimizing for other things, because it's not just biomass, there's lots of other things you want to do. And bringing in a techno-economic assessment in there as well. Because the other thing, I love the idea of the circular bioeconomy. It gets me very excited. But a lot of the time, it's just not working economically. And if it doesn't work economically, it's just never going to work. If you're making a material out of waste, then it's just so expensive you can't put it into anything, regardless of it has an enhanced environmental and nutritional profile. So tools like this are really, really invaluable, and this is something we'll make open source as well, so other researchers, industrialists can use it. Super quickly about this one, this is something I had my MSc students doing last summer, and this was looking at AI for resilient baked products. So some of the projects we work on with our industry partners, they want to change their ingredients, they understand if they're going to reduce the carbon footprint of their products, it's all in the feedstocks. Not all, but most is in the ingredients. So can they use lower carbon alternatives yet get the same quality? So we said to the students, right, you've got to make these biscuits and they've got to be the same width, the same height, good colour, good texture, same texture analysis, that's your baseline. Go away and reformulate and change things. So some of them are looking at changing wheat, some on the fats. It's really interesting. Some of the posters at the back are doing similar things experimentally. But then once we've got the data, we can start building models and we can start predicting it. And this is where we get through. I won't go through it all, but this is just some of the replacements they did. The important graph is probably on the bottom, because people will say with your machine learning, it makes a prediction, you don't know where it's coming from. But it can actually help inform you. If you do a method called feature importance, it'll tell you which features in your model have the biggest impact on the outcome. So this is actually telling us, I'm not sure what this is. This will be something around the formulation, some concentration or some processing, but it's telling us that one has the biggest impact. So it's actually giving us some insight that we can then use to go and understand. I mean, it's quite a basic system, but it's really powerful. I'll skip through the others. This was some yogurt fermentation monitoring we did with ultrasound with Arla. Some cool work we were doing there. This is cleaning, done a lot of work on cleaning, trying to monitor and optimize CIP processes. Again, use Bayesian optimization, and we can show here we're optimizing it for cost, carbon emissions and water, and we can see even after a few trials we get down to it. Because this is the trouble with this AI, it's the time. We can say we'll build an AI model that is going to optimize your cleaning process, but you're going to have to try all these different parameters in your cleaning. Cleaning's, you want to press a button and walk away. But we decided in this work we had to figure out how quickly can we get to that optimal, minimize the disruption, maximize the benefit. So that's what we've been doing in this.
So that was our summary of the IFST Autumn Conference. Really hope you've enjoyed this quite different episode. Let us know, because now I've got these little remote mics, we can be all over the place recording lots of different things. So if you would like us to attend your event and create a podcast episode like this to get more reach and let people know what different things are happening over the industry, do get in touch and let us know. So thank you very much for listening. As always, we would love to hear your reviews. Please subscribe and review wherever you listen to this. It really, really helps us. And we will see you next time. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope that this has been useful to you. As ever, we would love it if you could rate and review the podcast on your podcast app. It really does help us reach and support more foodies out there.
We'd also love it if you'd come and join us in the Facebook group, the O for Food's Sake community. And if you want to get in touch with us personally, Lucy is available for consultancy advice and training and can be found on LinkedIn as Lucy Wager.
And if you want to reach out to Amy for any one-to-one coaching, group facilitation or training, then contact her on LinkedIn at Amy Wilkinson Coach. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.
See you next time.